And guess what time it is? It's that time going into the evening when President-elect Trump starts sending out a flurry of cabinet picks like he's done daily for about a week now. And just in, Trump has named billionaire Scott Bessent as his pick for Treasury Secretary, according to two sources. He's been one of Trump's closest economic advisors in the last few months, and if confirmed, will be in charge of overseeing big campaign promises like sweeping tax cuts. Next, Trump tapping Congresswoman Lori Chavez-Deremer for Labor Secretary. She just lost her re-election bid in Oregon. Trump also announcing the Director of Office Management and Budget as Russell Thurlow Vaught. He was the director of OMB back in 2017 as well. And finally, Dr. Janet Neshiwat for Surgeon General, and former Congressman Dr. Dave Weldon for Director of the CDC. All of this is happening as we are also seeing increasing scrutiny for his new pick for Attorney General, Pam Bondi, which we're going to get to in just a second. Then there's the person who Bondi has replaced, former Congressman Matt Gaetz, who today talked about not returning to Congress and his decision to withdraw from consideration yesterday.
Pam Bondi's confirmation won't have some of the sharp edges that mine would have. It won't take the same long process. So AG Bondi will be able to start implementing those Trump policies right away. So we're ready on day one.
All right, so let's bring in NBC White House correspondent Aaron Gilchrist from West Palm Beach, Florida. Aaron, so much to dive into here. Let's start with Scott Bessent. Who is he and what can we expect?
You're right. Really, it was the last half an hour or so we started to get this long flurry of names for appointments, more than I can sort of keep track of with my notes here. But you're right. Scott Bessent was one of the names that we had been waiting for. We knew that he was in the mix, being considered for Treasury Secretary. He is someone who has had Donald Trump's ear for some time now. He was a key economic advisor during the campaign. He was also a big-time supporter of the Trump campaign, pouring lots of money into that effort. He is a hedge fund manager who many on Wall Street see as a good choice. We know there was some criticism from Elon Musk about Bessent before he was named as Donald Trump's choice for Treasury Secretary. That criticism saying that he would be more business as usual, and still we see now that Donald Trump has selected him as the person he wants to lead the effort to create more tax cuts, to lead the effort potentially to create tariffs that would impact other countries, to lead the effort in just setting fiscal and economic policy for this country that, of course, would touch other economies around the world. And as you noted, Gotti, just one of several announcements we're getting tonight from the Trump transition team.
Yeah, so many announcements. We don't even have time to read between the lines here. So let's just move straight to Russell Vaught. He's a familiar face, right, to Trump's cabinet room, but also a key figure in the whole Project 2025 thing. So who is he and what did he do between 2020 and now?
Yeah, you're right. Russell Vaught was the director of the Office of Management and Budget during the first Trump administration. He was someone who was a key figure in helping to map out some fiscal policy initiatives as well, and how the White House wanted Congress to work with it to spend money. We also know that he was a co-author of Project 2025, and that he served in a capacity where he with Project 2025, he was a writer of some of the policy positions that were part of that document. He also served as a policy manager during the Republican National Committee's development of its policy statements as well. And Vaught's appointment comes as a familiar source tells NBC News that transition officials have been taking a look at the personnel database that was developed as a part of Project 2025, looking at some of those people as potential people to come into the administration. And so now it seems as though, at least for him, and there have been several others who at least had some connection to Project 2025 who have been tapped for different roles, some of them roles that need to be confirmed by the Senate, some of them roles that are more part of the workforce for this administration.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.